Hello, folks. Welcome back to the channel, the Business Strategy Analyst Africa. Today, we are continuing with the discussion of the Value Pyramid of Management series. We are discussing the fifth component of the pyramid of management. And the question is, how dynamic is your organization's management? How dynamic is your organization's management? Management and the management systems put in place are very crucial for the success of any business organization. If management fails, the whole organization comes crumbling. In view of that very important role of management, some may wonder why it should be placed fifth, indeed last but one, on the value pyramid of management, or VPM. Well, come to think of it, would there be management without nature? And if society were not existing to provide the human resources and marketing, among other things, for the business, would management have anything to manage? Certainly not. The customer, who is the pivot around which the organization rotates, makes the conception and birth of the business possible and helps the company to remain financially vibrant and sustainable. Would you agree with that? Now, come to think of this too. As for human resources, which places third on the pyramid, I made the following observation in part 3 of this series. And this is what I stated. On the VPM, human resources are the most important internal stakeholder. Some may disagree with this position since management is needed to mobilize and coordinate the resources required by the organization, human resources included. However, management itself is made up of humans whose resources steer the organization. It is self-defeating to treat human resources as second fiddle in the strategy. Such an approach comes as a result of condescension, which prevents elevating human resource management to a position of power and primacy. Hence, top management is hardly regarded as being part of the human resources of the organization since they are not considered to be employees. Yet, if an employee is, quote, a person employed for wages or salary, unquote, then technically top management are also employees, for that matter, a part of the company's human resources. The quote was from the Concise Oxford Dictionary. This raises a very critical issue: the dichotomy between management and employees. Such a separation is archaic and needlessly disdainful. Management alone cannot handle all the operations of the organization. In fact, they alone cannot run its affairs. It takes the collaborative efforts of all and sundry in the organization to do so. And when management recognizes that and treats other employees as partners, that is when their headaches of unionization and industrial actions will be curtailed, if not eliminated. So that was what I stated. However, if that is the case, am I not duplicating issues here? Well, it might seem so to some. However, management in the VPM is a role, a function, and not a permanent designation. And so is employee. Hence, depending on what role a person plays at a given point in time, he is either an employee or a manager. Much as a head teacher manages the teachers as head, but is also a teacher himself when he enters a classroom to teach. We will now proceed with a definition of management. Quote, management is the art and science of decision making and leadership, unquote, by Donald J. Clough. To Mary Parker Farley, management is the art of getting things done through people, quote unquote. Traditionally, management is divided into three levels, namely top management, middle management, and lower management. Top management, usually made up of the board chairman, board directors, and the chief executive officer, formulate the strategy and the goals that direct the organization. The board is often appointed or elected by shareholders. It, in turn, appoints the chief executive officer. Top management is thus the custodian of shareholders' interests, and so direct their activities towards maximizing the shareholder value. Middle level management serves as the means through which plans formulated by top management are implemented in accordance with organizational policies. They may include general managers, department heads, and branch managers. They, in turn, perform supervisory roles over low-level management, who are made up of supervisors and foremen. They serve as the link between employees and management. So, this structure is thus normally hierarchical. However, in modern management thought, it is advocated by many, which I subscribe to, that wisdom no longer resides in only the elite and the business tycoon. That in the knowledge world, everyone has the potential to lead and to manage. Hence, it is archaic for top-level management to continue arrogating to itself the sole responsibility of planning and policy formulation. Management functions are better performed when shared among all workers. In recent times, we have seen what corporate governance has done to the world economy due to the autocratic way it operates. If that approach were practicable was practicable in the 17th century, it certainly isn't anymore, because times have changed, and that also gotta change.
Like, share, subscribe, thank you.
Hence, it is time to democratize the workplace. Per the VPM, human resources are the most important internal stakeholder of the organization. In the face of that, between workers and shareholders, who should determine the composition of the board? If a board is even necessary to begin with? Going forward, is the role of the board still very relevant? Do board members know more than all the workers? What do you say? Granted, there is the need for a head of every organism. Hence, if the organization is to operate as such, that's like an organism, then it requires a head to function properly. However, can the head of a goat function on the body of a cow? The answer is obvious. Why then should board members, usually persons who had never worked in the organization, be imposed on the company when workers of the organization are better placed to determine who are qualified and competent to constitute the board? Yet, I know many will scoff at this, but that would not be the case if the shareholder value maximization motive were curtailed. While the shareholders' money is very useful, their interests should not dominate or overshadow the other stakeholders. And that will be better achieved if the board is made accountable to the most important internal stakeholder, workers. How can this be done? Well, first of all, genuinely recognize workers. To begin with, management should live by its mantra that the human resources of the organization are its most important resource. If that is accomplished and the competencies of workers are not doubted, management would first of all democratize, as discussed earlier. Next, it would progressively grant autonomy to employees who have demonstrated themselves to be effective and efficient. This autonomy would enable them to experiment, and that in turn would lead to innovation and creativity, recipes for success. Also, in strategizing decision making and policy formulation, management will solicit the input of employees in order to arrive at a consensus that benefits the whole organization and all stakeholders, both internal and external. Furthermore, organizations should stop priding themselves with the number of employees or branches they have or operate. Such have proved over the years to be wasteful. Thus, in order to do away with unnecessary bureaucracy in management and sloth among some employees, the organization should not remain huge or colossal. It has to be divided into smaller, separate entities that offer their goods and services to both siblings and external organizations. In conclusion, the role of management in the organization is very important. But that notwithstanding, it is not the most important stakeholder. Neither is the shareholder. The focus of management should therefore shift from the shareholder value maximization motive to embrace as foremost the four other components of the VPM. That will significantly alter the function and practice of management. Most importantly, it will bring more dynamism into the organization, granting it resilience through fluidity, which will lead to wealth creation. So, here are the highlights of today's presentation. Management should live by its mantra that the human resources of the organization are its most important resource. Management should democratize. Management should progressively grant autonomy to employees who have demonstrated themselves to be effective and efficient. This autonomy would enable them to experiment, and that in turn would lead to innovation and creativity. Recipe for success. In strategizing, decision making, and policy formulation, management should solicit the input of employees in order to arrive at a consensus that benefits the whole organization and all stakeholders, both internal and external. Furthermore, organizations should stop priding themselves with the number of employees or branches that they have. Such have proved over the years to be wasteful. To do away with unnecessary bureaucracy in management and sloth among some employees, the organization should be divided into smaller, separate entities that offer their goods and services to both siblings and external organizations. So, folks, once again, we've come to the end of yet another episode of the Business Strategy Analyst Africa. The next component, and the last one for that matter, that we're going to consider on the Value Pyramid of Management, or VPM series, is the shareholder. Please make a date with me for that video. On this note, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the new subscribers to this channel. What can I do without you all? And if this is what you've done for me, here is my commitment that your subscription would not be in vain. Rather, I will put in my all to make sure that I churn out excellent, educative, informative videos to make it worth your while. Thank you, and thank you again. This has been your usual presenter, Jules Narti Tukoli. Until the next video, is bye-bye from here, and continue to practice the best management practices.